I now call to order the Wednesday, November 11th, 2020 Personnel and Policy Committee meeting of the Lisle Library District. Roll call, please.
Oh, we want to write the statement.
Oh, I thought that was after. Oh, before the roll call. Sorry. Okay. The Lisle Library District recognizes Governor Pritzker's most recent executive order, number 2020-59, which extends executive order number 2020-07 and the Government Emergency Administration Act number 100-06-40, which suspends certain requirements of the Open Meetings Act, allowing library trustees to participate remotely. All motions will require a roll call vote. Roll call, please.
Marjorie Bocelli.
Here.
Thomas Duffy.
Here.
Emily Swistek.
Here.
Thomas Hummel, absent. Tatiana Weinstein.
Here.
Beth McClellan. Here.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is opportunity for visitors to speak.
There are no visitors present, and there are no online visitors.
Okay, thank you. So moving on then to item number 3, approved minutes of the August 5th, 2020 Personnel Policy Committee meeting. Can I get a motion?
I will motion to approve the minutes of August 5th, 2020 Personnel Policy Committee meeting.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
None.
Okay. Seeing none, roll call, please.
Marjorie Bocelli.
Aye.
Thomas Duffy.
Aye.
Emily Swistek.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. Moving on to number 4, LLD Public Health Response Policy 606, draft discussion. And I'm going to turn it over to the director since there's lots of supplemental pages that we have for her to go over with us.
Okay, so I want to remind everybody of where we are with this policy. And just a little history first. The committee worked on a public health response draft in August, and then you sent it to the board for review. And then committee members as well as board members agreed that it would be best that the library's attorney review the draft due to the new law that came into effect, the FFCRA, the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And this act is set to expire on December 31st, but will undoubtedly be extended due to the uptick in COVID-19 cases in our state, just my guess. So I did confer with our attorney, and he was very impressed with the work that the committee did on the draft to this point. He said we had a great start on developing the policy by documenting all the important procedural steps and then laying out the communications details. So next I'm going to go over the drafts that are in your packet. I'm going to provide a very quick overview, and then we can go back and look at them in more detail, and we can wordsmith them if you like, okay? And I'm going to go page by page. So in your packet, I've included the clean draft document the board initially looked at. This was the document I sent to the attorney. And then on page 7 of the packet, you will see the legal draft of a policy 606. And you'll notice it is much, much shorter than what we had initially. But what the attorney advised was that the actual policy be more general because a pandemic situation like we are in now is so fluid. So having a more, there's just so many unknowns and best practices and recommendations that it would be impractical to have a policy that would list every scenario. So, but he did say having internal documentation that can be adjusted is a bit more realistic for an organization like ours, and a better method of handling situations like we are in right now. On page 8, it's the same legal draft, but it just shows an edited version of it. This edit that's in there, it just keeps the language a little bit more consistent with the introductory paragraph. That's all that's about. On page 9, this is where all our hard work is shown. Most of what we initially drafted is here, in this legal draft. The attorney is calling this document the administrative procedure related to policy 606 public health response. And then if you look on page 11 is my edit of the legal draft. The items in red are my recommendations, and the items in blue are the deviations from our original draft that were made by the attorney. And then on page 13, that's last of the supplementals, is the FFCRA administrative procedure document. I've made no edits here due to this being a statutory requirement. We can obviously wordsmith a few of the words in some areas, but the bulk of the document is accepted language for any FFCRA policy for our attorney. So that's just the general overview of all of the pages, and we can start with pages 7 and 8 back again to the general policy. So if we go back to policy 606, where the attorney recommended that we have something a little bit more brief, on pages 7 and 8, does the committee agree with the attorney recommendation to keep the policy more broad here, and then detailing the administrative measures separately?
I think that makes sense personally. Tom, Marjorie, how do you feel about that?
I would agree with that, Emily. Thank you.
Tom?
I agree.
Okay. I do have a question. I noticed that for the CDC and the IDPH, they put the acronyms in parentheses, but not for the DCHD, the Page County Health Department. And I didn't know if we wanted to add that in just for uniformity's sake. If we're putting in some of the acronyms, should we have all of them? So that was just one question. And then also, as we go through all of the documents tonight, the formatting for them, the justification is the full page justification. And I think all the rest of the policies in our policy manual are left justified, as opposed to the one where it like spreads it out to fit the whole page. And that's how all of the documents tonight are. They're all spread across the whole page as opposed to the left justified. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I noticed that just when I was looking through it. So I just wanted to make sure that whatever we end up with tonight, we make sure that we keep it in the same format as the other policies we have in our policy manual with a left justification.
Noted.
But otherwise, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
the committee okay with the language edit at the bottom in red? Matches the introductory paragraph to talk about operational measures versus procedures.
Yes.
I'm good with that. Marjorie, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
Tom looks like he's going to say something.
For what? This is a few drafts here. Are you looking at the LLD edit of legal draft document right now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
on page 8.
Just want to make.
Okay.
Okay.
So that was pretty simple. Great. Now we get into a little bit more beefy stuff. So on pages 9 and 11, we have the legal draft of the internal procedures and the edited draft with some modified and added language. So I would suggest we look at page 11, start on page 11, because I use the legal draft as the guide, and then I show the differences in red and blue. So if we turn to page 11, I'll go through some of the changes, a little more detail. First, you'll see a change in the title. I used the term measures to be consistent with policy 606, and also because the FFCRA document uses the term procedure, and I wanted to differentiate between those two documents. I also struck the term procedure from the first sentence because this document has a number of actions within it, and I didn't want it to refer to the document as a single procedure. I did confer with the attorney on all of these small like wordsmithing edits, and he was completely okay with it. He just said, yeah, absolutely. So I just want to make sure that the committee is okay with just these two changes, the title and then that first sentence.
Okay.
That seem okay? Okay. And then the next areas in the policy, you'll see some blue additions. So like in, for example, in 1A, 1B, 2A, B, D, and L, and then in 3C, D, L, and M. These additions by the attorney are mostly like protective phrases using terms like to the extent possible or if applicable, things like that. The items in red are my suggestions. 2H especially was specifically recommended by HR Source. That's the library's human resources firm. And they also have a legal branch that we've consulted with here. And the same goes with number 4. We consulted with HR Source, that's on the next page. We consulted with HR Source for this about travel limitations and operational guidelines. So we've honed these down from the previous document. We had a lot more detail here, but these are more general guidelines that they recommend. So are there any questions about this? A lot of this is what we already had in our previous clean draft, but there are some additions in blue in it and some suggestions in red. Oh, one more last thing about this particular internal document, that it indeed is an internal document that we can adjust during a pandemic like we're in, as long as it complies with policy 606. And as we just went over, policy 606 states the library will consult with the board, will follow local and federal health guidelines, and make operational changes as needed. So this won't be a part of the policy, it's just part of the procedures, and that's why we're talking about it here, because initially this was part of our policy that we presented to the board, but right now this will become an internal document that may be modified due to the particular situation, a particular public health emergency. Okay, so any questions about the draft?
Okay, so as you were just saying about it being an internal document, so then where will it be housed? Will it still be in our policy manual? Will it be in the staff manual? Where will it be accessible to the people who need it?
It will be in the employee handbook and accessible to the board, accessible to anyone who requests it, although it may be modified internally as a situation changes.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
all the staff will receive it. Everybody will have access to it. It just won't be policy in our policy.
Okay. Okay. But so then once we do decide, okay, this is good, we want to put it forward to the full board votes on it, then after that, staff would get a copy of it?
Oh, yeah,
I want to
absolutely.
make sure I'm understanding the.
Yeah, and we're talking about it here again because it initially, this information was originally going to be part of a policy that the committee discussed.
Right.
But we're kind of dividing it up for the attorney's recommendation to do so, to have an
Okay.
versus an external.
Mm-hmm. And that makes perfect sense to me. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding the whole way it would work. Okay, so I really appreciate the work that was put into this. I like how you added the extra things that that if feasible or if applicable or to the extent possible. I think that was good to put those in. And I do appreciate the staff situations about travel and things like that. So and as I didn't say this yet, but I do also really like the 1 and 2H that you added in with the connecting with staff to connect with them about their well-being and their concerns, because I think that's really important too. They're in the public. You're working in a building that the public comes in and out of all the time, and I can imagine that would cause some stress. And I appreciate the attention to the staff and how they're dealing with it too. So I just wanted to say, thank you for adding that in. I think that was really important, and it shows that you care about the staff and how they're doing as well. So thank you for adding that in.
That was a recommendation by HR Source. It's kind of a twofold line item there because it's touching base with your staff, but also to ensure that it's a safe environment for the rest of the staff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Marjorie, do you have any comments?
No, I think it looks great. And again, thank you for all the work. It makes it easy for us, Director.
Tom?
No, I'm good. I'm not going to waste time. It's very solid. Thank you.
Okay, so that being said, there is a date at the bottom of that. So this is something that would be approved at a full board meeting, correct?
The
So we would
whole,
put it,
I would say the whole complement of paperwork would be approved at the board meeting.
okay, so policy 606 and then any of the supplemental documents that we're going through tonight. So we'll just hold off on making that determination till we're done with the discussion and then say, okay, we're ready to set it forward. Okay, good. All right, so then we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, so the next document I did not touch is the FFCRE, EXLA, and FMLEA. Lots of acronyms there. Again, this is not touched by me because it's accepted language for the legislative acts that have been passed. Again, mentioning that these are supposed to expire on December 31st, but will probably be extended. And again, because this is an internal document, we can update it as the act is extended or is updated during any pandemic event. So this is kind of boilerplate stuff here. Yeah.
Well,
So my one thought on this was it's going to be point A, point 5. Is I'm going to read it out loud just to make sure that I'm reading it correctly. The employee is caring for his or her child if the school or place of care of the child has been closed. So right now, schools are not closed. Predominantly, they are remote. So, because I know what it's basically saying, right? If the physical location is closed, then they are eligible, I think, for like this kind of this assistance. But I guess the question is, the reason why they're eligible for it is because they can't work because they have to be at home because their kid is at home. But underneath this statute, it only says that the school is closed. My question is, I don't want to play lawyer today anyways, is how does the legal term closed mean? Does it mean that they are not in person, but still remote? Or does it mean that it's only if it's fully closed?
Well, we'll correct the spelling error first and foremost. You have an eagle eye there.
I think in that same one, we probably need to get rid of the employee part because of the fact that the top thing ends with he/she : and all the rest is a verb. And then number 5 has another subject in it with the employee. But so I see what Tom is saying about the being closed. I know that in some other areas, just because I've spoken with some teachers, is that there are some districts that are allowing the teachers to request to continue to teach remotely and not go into the building and teach from the building while the students are virtual because their children are home doing their own remote learning. And so the same thing that Trustee Duffy was saying about, the building is closed, the students aren't going into the building, the children at home, but school isn't closed, like they're still having school. So I see where the, that question is there about, is it closed and nothing's happening and therefore, they need to be home with the child, or is it because the child is home doing remote learning and needs to be, can't be alone?
I can
Yeah,
speak to what HR source said on this subject. And their interpretation of this was that the act was, in a sense, providing 2 weeks for a family or a person, an employee, to figure out how to manage the care of their child. The over on the next page is, you have 2 weeks and it's 2/3 pay. So their interpretation was this was allowing you for a broad kind of circumstances for how you're going to reorient childcare when you were previously expecting a child to be in school or to be at daycare.
Okay, so it's if they were in the building, right?
No, if, as Tom said, if you don't have someone to take care of your child and then they're at home, then you have, in a sense, 2 weeks to try to come up with another circumstance.
Okay, okay.
My question is, I totally agree with you, Beth, because that's I know that's the spirit of what this is. So I'm going to kind of walk myself through the thinking. So before I do that, Tatiana, this is just a verbatim document pretty much, right? So this isn't, so I don't even know if we can change it, let alone anything if we wanted to, or.
Somewhat, as long as we're not changing the meat of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I'm thinking about is, okay, we really probably can't change this, but getting some type of legal clarification may be key. So, EPSLA, it's talking about at the top, provide the employees a schedule to work, full or part-time, if they're unable to work or telework because of the following. 1 is COVID, 2 is COVID, 3 is COVID, 4 is they're caring for someone with COVID or needs some care. 5 is if their kid, their child, is in a school or place of care that is closed. 6 is something experienced something kind of a condition. Here's a perfect situation where I don't know if this person has full protection. What if I have a child that has special needs? My school is not closed. I cannot telework because my kid has special needs that requires a lot more care, but it's not due to COVID because they're not in quarantine or advisement by a healthcare provider. And technically the school is open.
But
Now, I can't.
COVID, you're saying your situation that you're bringing up is not due to COVID?
Well, no, what I'm saying is the child is special needs, so it requires a higher end active care by the parent.
Mm-hmm.
So it would not, when I read number 8.5, I don't believe that provides, from my non-legal opinion, does not provide to me a verbatim coverage for somebody like that, because the school is open but I cannot telework because I have to provide extra attention and care to that child. It would be different if, let's say, it's a child that's like a 9-year-old without special needs. Then maybe I could telework. But there are plenty of people that face that circumstance that the schools have not been able to provide care for. But I guess it gets down to the definition of closed. Does closed mean the facility is closed and they're not getting the same education level, so thus from a legal standpoint it's closed? Or does it mean something else? And the reason why I think about this is, what if we have, and I'm not aware of the LLD employees, but if we do have an LLD employee that is taking care of someone that, a child that has special needs, and that child requires more attention, I don't know if this act would provide coverage to them or not. I would just need more guidance on that.
So I want to understand, I think I'm there. So is the child not in school because the school can't provide the necessary teaching system for that particular child because they have special needs because of the COVID situation, right?
Correct. Most schools are not, depending on the severity of the special need in question, but most schools are not having most students with special needs come into school. So you can probably, in a safe bet, assume that the parents are taking even a more active role within the monitoring and care of the child throughout the day, as opposed to a child of that same age that would not have a special need.
Okay, so what about this with this sentence? So I think this would cover it, and I can confer with the attorney before we bring it to the board. So number A5 could read, is unable to telework because she is caring for his or her child if the school or place of care of the child has been closed or limited in services, or the child care provider of such child is unavailable due to COVID-19, or something like that, with limited services.
Personally, I'm comfortable with that. I know that since this is a verbatim one, I want to make sure that we can add it, but I want to make sure if we add it, it's still allowed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I will ask. I will definitely ask. We'll either call HR source or our attorney and see if we can add that layer of the scenario you're talking about here. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Thank you for bringing that up, Tom.
Does that make sense, though, Secretary Swistak and Vice President Bartelli? I was hoping I was making sense as I was walking through that. I didn't want to go off on a ledge there.
No, you were, because I mean, I know some people that are in situations like that. So I appreciate the thought about special circumstances that may arise that we need to address as well.
And I think that spoke to HR source more than I have, but I spoke to the attorney. I think that the spirit of the law is really to cover all situations, but I think because this is so specific to this family first coronavirus, adding a layer in there for some limited resources for people who have special situations, I imagine it would be allowable. But again, I will check in, and then I'll come up with something to add. And then if the committee chooses to forward all these documents to the next board meeting, that will be included.
Hi, Emily.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just wondering why we're not including the act itself. If you go online, all I can do is show this document up. It is verbatim, and it's labeled the exact same way as our title. Families First Coronavirus Response Act, Employee Paid Leave Rights. Why, simple question, why are we not just including this document as is versus our legal draft on page 13 and just putting it into a document similar to what we have in our policy manual? My opinion, I'm not opposed to page 13 and what we just discussed, but to me, it makes it simpler for our patrons to understand that this is simply a Department of Labor Act, and we are subject to it. Just a question.
I know you addressed Secretary Swistak. Do you want me to? Can I?
Yes, please.
So the attorney recommended we have something that was specific to the library so that employees can read that the LLD supports the act. And although we are basically forced to comply with any act the state puts forward. So that's something that's in our employee manual and that employees will read. And it shows that, again, we support it. Though you make a good point in that, and I'm not sure it's in here, but is the act itself, I know it's named, but maybe we could put in the act number or statute number in the introduction after it. I'm not sure has one. I don't know what you're looking at, Marjorie, but if there's a number or something, we can add it.
I do have it. May I interrupt? The titles are a little different, so it's not, our page 13 is not verbatim. The title, I'll read it. It's Families First Coronavirus Response Act, Employee Paid Leave Rights. So I don't know if that comes into play for our purposes, but that's actually the official title of the act.
We could include the link to the act somewhere in the introduction. Again, it's mandatory to comply, and so that's not a question, but having something that's specific to the LLD was recommended.
Oh, and I agree with that totally. It was just a question. I mean, I'm fine with this the way it is.
Thank you for bringing that up, Marjorie. I appreciate that, because then so we can get the link then to the website and include it in the document.
Okay.
So is this similar, Tatiana, to kind of how you would do the FMLA in any HR handbook where it does the abbreviated version so that the employee has it, but you either have the link or, as Vice President Bartelli just said, I think what I would like is when this is eventually approved, can we also provide a hard copy of the entire act for everyone if they choose it, just so that they have knowledge of it?
Yep, we can do that.
Okay, good. Were there any other questions or concerns about this draft, pages 13, 14, and 15?
Chairman Swistak, on page 14, I just have a question about the wording. You're better at this than I am. Under B, fourth paragraph, where it begins, the LLD will maintain all records related to an employee's request for, grant, or denial of leave. I guess I'm not, the employee's request for.
It should probably be grant of, comma, or denial of.
Okay.
The other preposition in there, because it's a request for leave, a grant of leave, or denial of leave.
Okay. Okay.
Good catch, Marjorie.
Oh, I'm learning. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Duffy?
Is there a specific form that needs to be completed for this?
Yeah, well, did they give you something at HR?
No, they just said to have your own procedure.
Yeah, I think it's not a form. They have to fill, I mean, you have to follow the instructions. Where are they here? You have to write out.
Well, in B, documentation, it does say they need to provide the LLD director or her probably should say her designee. I mean, yes, our director right now is a,
Yeah.
probably should say her.
Right.
Her designee with the following information when requesting leave, and then that does go through and say, what you need to provide. And so I don't think we need a specific form for that. I think they just need to look at this and then include it in their, in like a formal letter, right? That you would do,
Right.
Any other time you're requesting a leave for something.
Right.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, FMLD, there are forms.
Yeah, that's why I asked. So I know this is kind of not like a clone, but within the same family of the FMLA and all that. So I didn't know if there was if I kind of create a little quicker than the FMLA kind of stuff.
And again,
Yeah.
come December 31st, some of these things could change too.
There's a,
Requirements or, you know, expansion or minimization of some of the things in this act, who knows?
there's another one where we have to make it his/her,
Okay.
unless we want to make it there,
Well,
which is,
his,
then
her,
you can get rid of the his/her. But for
Yeah.
uniformity, I think we have his/her in other places. So
where's that?
it's at the, so that paragraph where it says for all qualifying reasons in the very last sentence. It says unless otherwise informed by the LLD director or, and then his/her or her/his. I don't care the order. At some point, we can just go through and switch it all to the there.
Here. Oh, up there.
At the top of page 14. Sorry. Second paragraph under B, documentation. Do you see it? The last sentence.
I'll leave it up to Beth. I can't see.
So the top of the page, B, documentation, and then there's that one sentence that we added in the his/her, and then there's the next paragraph that says for all qualifying reasons, and in the last sentence in that paragraph,
Yeah,
and on the far right side.
I got it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Anyone see anything else? Sometimes I feel like we do need to read through it more than once because then we start catching more things. Vice President Bartelli, do you see anything else?
No, I don't. Thanks.
Trustee Duffy?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so then if everyone's good, do we feel okay about sending these to the next board meeting next Wednesday? I know the director said she will find out about those questions that we had to revise it as far as either HR source or the lawyer. But however, other than that, we're good with everything from tonight going forward to the next board meeting. That's next
Yes.
Wednesday?
Aye.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So that was all we had for tonight because we weren't sure how long it was going to take, and it was kind of like a lot of meat all at once. And it's kind of nice to have a shorter meeting. So in our next meeting, I'll talk with the director to figure out when we can schedule another meeting, but that's when we'll spend some more time on the director evaluation document and procedure and things like that. So we didn't want to add it to tonight because we didn't know how long this was going to take, and we've had a lot of really long meetings recently, and I thought it would be nice for us to not have a long one tonight. So does anyone have anything else they want to bring up before we move to adjourn?
No.
Okay, then can I get a motion to adjourn?
This is Trustee Duffy. I move to adjourn.
Vice President Bartelli, second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call, please.
Thomas Duffy,
Aye.
Marjorie Bartelli,
Aye.
Emily Swistek.
Aye. Okay, motion passes. We are adjourned at 7:38 p.m. Thank you, everyone.